The main hall of the academy filled quickly with faculty members. Director Kalmat stood at the center, her normally blue tentacles now a pale gray with stress. Professor Warren arrived last, moving with purposeful strides. One of our research vessels has crashed on the lunar base, the director announced. They were attacked by void reavers while collecting geological samples. A wave of concerned murmurs spread through the room. Void reavers were feared throughout the galaxy, pirates who showed no mercy, taking what they wanted and destroying everything else. How many crew members? Asked Professor Lan. 17, Director Kalmat replied. 14 students and 3 faculty researchers. And the reavers? Professor Warren asked. The room grew quiet at her question. Our scanners show approximately 20 reavers have established a blockade around the crash site. They are armed and have sent demands for valuable academy technology in exchange for our people. The faculty erupted in discussion. Most favored, contacting the Galactic Council for military support or preparing to meet the pirates' demands. Professor Warren remained silent until Director Kalmat asked directly for her input. What would Earth protocols suggest in this situation, Professor Warren? Alice's expression remained calm, but those close to her noticed a change in her eyes, a sharpness that hadn't been there before. How long until Galactic Council forces could arrive? She asked. At least 12 standard hours, the director replied. Warren nodded. That's too long. The reavers won't wait. They'll take what they want and leave no witnesses. Professor Vexalia's skin pulsed with alarm. Surely, you're not suggesting we attack? 20 armed void reavers against what? Our security staff isn't trained for combat. I am not suggesting we do anything, Warren replied. I need a shuttle, basic weapons, and medical supplies. The room fell silent again, this time with confusion and disbelief. You, Professor Lan, said finally. Alone? Against 20 reavers? Warren's lips formed a thin smile. I've faced worse odds. Director Kalmat's tentacles twisted with uncertainty. Professor Warren, while we appreciate your willingness to help, we cannot allow you to risk your life in such a manner. With respect, Director, Warren said, those students have approximately 6 hours before the reavers lose patience. I can reach the moon in under 1 hour. I'm not asking for permission, I'm asking for transportation and equipment. Something in Warren's tone made the director pause. You have combat experience with such situations? I do, Warren said simply. While the faculty continued to debate, Katal and 4 other students had secretly gathered in the observation room connected to the main hall. They had overheard everything. She's going to fight 20 void reavers? Alone? Whispered Miri, her 4 eyes wide with shock. It's impossible, said another student. Even the strongest species can't defeat that many armed opponents. Katal watched the human professor carefully. I'm not so sure. Look at her. She's completely calm, almost like she's done this before. It's still suicide, Miri insisted. Then we should document it, Katal said suddenly. For science. What? The others stared at him. This is a unique opportunity to observe human behavior in a crisis situation. If she's truly going to attempt this, we should record it for our xenobiology studies. After much debate, the Academy Council reluctantly approved Warren's request. A small shuttle was prepared with basic supplies. When Warren arrived at the landing pad, she found Katal and 4 other students waiting. We're coming with you, Katal announced, as observers. For our xenobiology research, Warren's expression hardened. Absolutely not. This is not a field trip. We'll stay on the shuttle, Katal promised, but this is a unique opportunity to document human crisis response. It's valuable data. Warren looked at the young aliens, recognizing the academic curiosity that drove them. After a moment, she nodded. You stay on the shuttle. You do not leave under any circumstances. If I'm not back in 3 hours, you return to the academy immediately. Understood? The students agreed eagerly, filing into the shuttle. As they took off, Warren began preparing her equipment. She checked the simple laser pistol provided by Academy security and frowned. Not ideal, she muttered, adjusting its settings. Catal watched in fascination as the human professor transformed before his eyes. The calm teacher who had lectured about adaptation was gone. In her place was someone else entirely. Someone who moved with practiced efficiency, who checked weapons and studied terrain maps with the ease of long experience. "Professor," he ventured, "may I ask what strategy you plan to use? Negotiation?" Warren looked up from the map display. "No." "A diversion, then? Until help arrives?" "No," she said again. "I'm going to eliminate the threat." The students exchanged nervous glances. "But there are 20 of them," Miri said, "and only one of you." For the first time since the emergency began, Warren smiled. It wasn't a reassuring expression. "Where I come from," she said, "those are acceptable odds." The shuttle approached the lunar base under the cover of a magnetic storm. Warren had instructed the pilot to land approximately 1 kilometer from the crash site, in a crater that would shield them from Reaver sensors. As they landed, Warren changed into a dark suit designed for lunar conditions. She secured the laser, pistol, and several other small devices the students didn't recognize. "Remember," she told them firmly, "stay on the shuttle. Monitor the communications, but do not respond to anyone except me. I'll contact you when it's safe to approach for evacuation." "Professor," Catal said, his voice betraying his concern, "the Void Reavers are known for their brutality. They've destroyed entire settlements. How can you possibly—" "I was a Marine for 26 years, Warren interrupted. "Special operations, this isn't my first rescue mission." With that, she sealed her helmet and exited the shuttle. The students immediately activated the shuttle's external cameras and sensor array, determined to document everything. They watched as Warren moved across the lunar surface with surprising speed and grace, using the natural formations for cover. "She's moving so efficiently," Miri noted. "Like she's done this many times before." "Look at her heart rate and breathing," Catal said, pointing to the biometric data from Warren's suit. "They're barely elevated. She's not afraid." As Warren approached the crash site, they could see the Reaver guards posted around the perimeter. The pirates were large, reptilian creatures with enhanced body armor and heavy weapons. Any one of them was physically stronger than a human. The students watched, expecting Warren to find a hiding place and wait for an opportunity to sneak inside. Instead, she did something that left them speechless. She attacked. Moving from shadow to shadow, Warren approached the first guard from behind. The motion was so quick the students almost missed it, a sudden strike to a vulnerable point between the Reaver's armor plates. The guard collapsed without making a sound. "Did she just—" Miri couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes," Catal whispered, "and she's moving to the next one." Within minutes, Warren had eliminated 4 perimeter guards without raising an alarm. Her movements were precise, economical, and lethal. The students watched in stunned silence as their professor, the same woman who had carefully explained evolutionary theory to them days before, systematically neutralized one threat after another. "This can't be normal behavior," one student whispered, "even for humans." "I'm not so sure," Catal replied, his eyes fixed on the monitor. "Remember what Professor Lon said? Humans evolved as pursuit predators on a death world. We're witnessing millions of years of evolution in action." As Warren disappeared inside the crashed research vessel, the students realized they were observing something unprecedented, something that would change their understanding of humanity forever. The morning sun cast long shadows across the landing pad as the transport shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere of Centauri Prime. Professor Zucklorth watched with all 4 of his eyes, his scaled skin shifting to a pale blue color that signaled his nervousness. Today marked a historic moment for the Galactic Academy of Sciences. The first human instructor would join their faculty. "Are you certain this is wise, Director?" Zucklorth asked, his voice tubes vibrating with concern. "Humans have only been part of the Federation for 3 decades. Their biology is concerning." Director Kalmat's tentacles rippled in what passed for a shrug among her species. "The Council believes cultural exchange is vital for continued peace. Besides, this human comes highly recommended. 26 years of military service, followed by 12 years teaching at their Earth university. That's precisely my concern, Zekalorth said, his skin darkening slightly. A military background. The shuttle's engines powered down with a soft whine. The loading ramp extended, and a single figure emerged, carrying only a small bag. The human was smaller than Zekalorth had expected. Female, with hair the color of Centauri's moons and skin lightly marked with age. She walked with a straight posture that somehow conveyed both dignity and readiness. Professor Alice Warren, Director Kalmat announced, extending 3 of her tentacles in the traditional greeting. Welcome to the Galactic Academy. The human smiled and bowed slightly before taking the offered appendages carefully in her hands. Thank you, Director. I'm honored to be here. Zekalorth noted how the other faculty members kept a respectful distance. Most had never encountered a human in person. The stories about Earth and its inhabitants had spread quickly after first contact. Tales of a death world where the dominant species had evolved, despite all odds, surviving conditions that would kill most sentient beings in the galaxy. This is Professor Zekalorth, the director continued. He will show you to your quarters and help you prepare for your classes. Zekalorth extended a scaled hand. Welcome, Professor Warren. The human's grip was firm but careful. Zekalorth noticed calluses on her palm and small scars across her knuckles. Her eyes met his directly, a pale blue that reminded him of the frozen lakes on his homeworld. Please call me Alice, she said. Her voice was softer than he had expected. As they walked through the curved hallways of the academy, students of various species stopped to stare. Most had never seen a human before. A group of Malorian students, with their characteristic purple skin and 4 arms, whispered excitedly among themselves. I hope I don't cause too much disruption, Alice said, nodding politely at the onlookers. Curiosity is the foundation of learning, Zekalorth replied formally. Your seminar on survival adaptations in hostile environments has already reached maximum enrollment, Alice smiled. Not surprising. Most species find Earth's conditions rather extreme. Is it true that your planet has regions where frozen water falls from the sky, while others are so hot that liquids boil away? Asked a young Vexian student who had been following them. Quite true, Alice replied. We call the frozen water snow and those hot regions deserts. I grew up in a place with both, cold winters and hot summers. The student's compound eyes widened. And you survived these changes? Humans are very adaptable, Alice said simply. They reached the faculty housing section, a curved building with views of the Academy's botanical gardens. Alice's quarters were modest but comfortable, with adjustments made for human biology. A bed instead of a suspension pod, gravity set to Earth standard, and temperature controls modified for human comfort. The faculty meeting begins in 3 hours, Zekalorth said. That should give you time to settle in. Thank you, Professor, Alice replied, setting her bag down. I appreciate your hospitality. After Zekalorth left, Alice unpacked her few belongings. Among them was a small metal box, which she placed carefully on the desk. Opening it revealed several medals and a worn photograph showing Alice in a military uniform, standing among a group of soldiers in front of a spacecraft. She touched the photo briefly, then closed the box and began reviewing her teaching materials on a datapad. Meanwhile, in the faculty lounge, several professors had gathered to discuss the new arrival. I've reviewed her file, said Professor Vexalia, a tall, slender being with iridescent skin. 26 years in human military service, their Marine Corps Special Forces, multiple combat deployments. Is that concerning? Asked a younger professor. Professor Lon, the xenobiology department head, fluttered his wing membranes thoughtfully. Humans evolved as pursuit predators on a Class 5 death world. Their endurance exceeds almost any species in the Federation, and their psychology. He paused. Well, let's just say there's a reason the Galactic Council approached them for alliance rather than conquest. You're being dramatic, Vexalia said. They're physically weaker than most sentient species. No natural weapons, minimal sensory abilities, slow reproductive cycle. Yet they dominate their planet, Lon countered. And their military history suggests capabilities we still don't fully understand. In the student dining hall, similar conversations were taking place. Katal, a promising xenobiology student with pale green scales and a ridge of sensory spines along his back, was particularly excited. "I've signed up for her seminar," he told his study group. "My research project is on evolutionary adaptations to extreme environments. Having a species that evolved on a Class 5 world as an instructor is an unprecedented opportunity. I heard humans can continue functioning even after significant physical damage," said his classmate, a Trill student named Miri. "Is that true?" "According to the xenobiology texts, yes," Katal replied. "Their bodies conceal wounds temporarily, function with significant blood loss, and even survive the loss of entire limbs under certain conditions." "That's disturbing," another student commented. "It's fascinating," Katal corrected. "Think about it. A species that evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Their adaptations must be extraordinary." None of the students realized how soon they would witness those adaptations firsthand, or how the lessons they were about to learn would change the Federation's understanding of humanity forever. 3. Weeks later, Professor Warren stood before a packed lecture hall. Students of 17 different species watched as she displayed images of Earth's various biomes on the large screen behind her. "Adaptation," she said, "is the key to survival. On Earth, life exists in environments ranging from deep-sea volcanic vents to Antarctic ice shelves. But adaptation isn't just physical, it's psychological. The will to survive can overcome remarkable odds." As she spoke, emergency lights suddenly flashed red across the ceiling. A computerized voice echoed through the room. "Emergency protocols activated. All faculty report to the main hall immediately." Alice paused, her expression shifting almost imperceptibly. The students watched as something changed in their professor's demeanor, a straightening of her posture, a sharpening of her gaze. "Class dismissed," she said calmly. "Please return to your dormitories until further notice." None of the students could have predicted that the emergency, a research vessel attacked by space pirates, would become the most important lesson of their academic careers. A lesson about why humans, despite their apparent physical limitations, were the most feared species in the galaxy. Inside the crashed research vessel, Professor Warren moved silently through the damaged corridors. The air was thin but breathable. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the wreckage. She paused at each junction, listening carefully before proceeding. Through her earpiece, she could hear the students on the shuttle. "Professor, we're tracking 6 Reavers on the lower level near the engine room," Katal whispered, "and 4 more guarding what appears to be the main laboratory." Warren tapped her communicator twice to acknowledge. The students had proven surprisingly useful, monitoring the ship's remaining security feeds to guide her movements. She reached a maintenance hatch and climbed down to the lower level. 2 Reaver guards stood at the far end of the corridor, their scaled backs to her. Warren assessed the situation quickly. Direct confrontation would alert others. She needed to maintain the element of surprise. From a pocket in her suit, she removed a small device and placed it on the floor. With a quick tap, it emitted a soft beeping sound. Both guards turned toward the noise, their weapons raised. Warren pressed herself against the wall as they approached. When the first guard passed, she struck. A quick, precise blow to the base of the skull where the neural stem connected to the brain. The Reaver dropped without a sound. The second guard turned, but Warren was already moving. Before it could raise an alarm, she had disabled it as well. 2 more down, she whispered into her communicator. "Where are the hostages?" "Main cargo, bay 2 levels up," Katal replied. "But Professor, there are at least 8 Reavers guarding them." "Understood." As Warren made her way upward, the students watching from the shuttle continued to document everything. Their initial shock had given way to fascination and a growing sense of unease. "How is she doing this?" Miri asked, her voice barely audible. "She's eliminated 8 of them already, alone." "Look at her vitals," Katal pointed to the biomonitor display. "Heart rate elevated but controlled. Breathing regular. She's not even showing significant stress responses." "That's not normal," another student said. No species should be able to eliminate multiple threats without experiencing fear or hesitation. Katal's scales rippled with excitement. Maybe that's why humans are so effective in combat. They don't have the same neurological inhibitors most species evolved with. On the upper level, Warren encountered 3 more Reavers patrolling the corridors. She waited until they separated, then eliminated them one by one with the same methodical efficiency. With each success, she collected their weapons, adding them to her arsenal. Meanwhile, in the cargo bay, the remaining Reavers were growing nervous. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Grix, paced before the captive academy members. The 14 students and 3 faculty researchers were bound together in the center of the room. Something's wrong, Grix growled. 5 guards not responding. Another Reaver checked a communication device. Could be the magnetic storm interfering with signals. Or it could be the rescue party we expected, Grix snarled. They're earlier than anticipated. He turned to the captives. No matter. We have what we need. He pointed to the eldest faculty member, Professor Alara. You will unlock the research files now, or we start eliminating your students. Professor Alara, her blue skin pale with fear, shook her head. The research is classified. I cannot. Grix struck her across the face. Your Federation protocols are meaningless here. The files contain weapons technology, valuable to us. Last chance. Before Alara could respond, the lights in the cargo bay flickered and went out. Emergency backup lights activated moments later, casting the room in dim blue light. What was that? Grix demanded. A voice answered from the darkness. That was me. The Reavers spun around, weapons raised, but saw nothing. Warren had positioned herself in the shadowed upper rafters of the cargo bay. Show yourself, Grix ordered. I'd rather not, Warren replied calmly. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, an old combat trick using the ship's damaged comm system. How many in your rescue party? Grix demanded. Just me. The Reavers. Laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the cargo bay. 1 against 11? Grix sneered. You're either brave or stupid. Neither, Warren replied. Just efficient. Something small dropped from the ceiling, landing in the center of the Reaver group. Before they could react, it exploded in a blinding flash of light. As the Reavers staggered, temporarily blinded, Warren dropped from her hiding place. What followed was unlike anything the captives had ever witnessed. The human moved through the Reaver group with a fluid grace that belied her age and size. Each movement was precise, targeting vulnerable points in the pirate's anatomy with devastating effect. 3 Reavers fell before they could even raise their weapons. 2 more fired wildly, their shots missing the fast-moving human. Warren disabled, them with brutal efficiency using their own momentum against them. Grix, recovering faster than his comrades, lunged at Warren with a vibro blade. She sidestepped, caught his arm, and in one continuous motion used his own weapon against him. The Reaver leader collapsed with a look of shock on his face. In less than 2 minutes, 10 of the 11 Reavers in the cargo bay were disabled. The last one stood trembling, weapon lowered, facing the human who had just eliminated its entire crew. Mercy, it croaked, dropping its weapon. Warren regarded the pirate coolly. Mercy is an option now? Did you offer the same to the ship's crew when you attacked them? The Reaver couldn't meet her gaze. That's what I thought, Warren said. However, I'm not like you. She gestured to the exit. Go. Take one of your shuttles. Spread the word about what happened here today. The Reaver backed away slowly, then turned and fled. Professor Ilara stared at Warren with wide eyes as the human began freeing the captives. Who are you? She whispered. Alice Warren. Xenobiology, Professor, Warren replied simply as she cut through their restraints. Can everyone walk? We need to move quickly. One of the captured students, a young Arcturian with delicate wing membranes, was injured with a deep cut across his thorax. Warren knelt beside him, pulling medical supplies from her pack. This will stabilize you until we reach the academy, she said, applying a healing compound to the wound. Her hands, which had been instruments of destruction moments before, now moved with gentle precision. As Warren helped the injured student to his feet, Professor Alara asked the question everyone was thinking. How did you defeat so many Reavers? It should have been impossible. Warren checked her weapon before answering. Humans evolved differently than most species in the galaxy, where you developed natural weapons, claws, enhanced strength, venomous secretions. We developed something else: persistence, adaptability, and when necessary, the capacity to overcome threats regardless of number. The capacity to kill without neurological inhibition, Professor Alara said quietly. The rumors about humans are true, then? Warren met her gaze steadily. Yes and no. We can do what must be done, but we choose not to, most of the time. That's the difference. She activated her communicator. Katal, bring the shuttle to the main landing bay. We have 17 survivors ready for extraction. Some need medical attention. Yes, Professor. Katal's voice came through, tinged with awe. We're on our way. As they waited for the shuttle, the rescued students gathered around Warren, keeping a respectful distance but unable to hide their curiosity and newfound admiration. The human professor who had seemed so ordinary in the classroom had revealed herself to be something else entirely. Something both terrifying and fascinating. And on the shuttle, Katal was already composing in his mind the research paper that would change xenobiology forever. The human anomaly, evolution without kill limitation. The journey back to the academy was quiet. The rescued students and faculty sat huddled together in the shuttle's main cabin, occasionally glancing at Professor Warren. She had taken the co-pilot's seat beside Katal, who flew the shuttle with nervous concentration. The Academy medical team is standing by, Katal reported. Director Kalmat has alerted the Galactic Council about the Reaver attack. Warren nodded. Good. The injured need immediate attention when we land. Professor, Katal began, his voice hesitant. I've been monitoring your biometric data throughout the mission. Your neurological patterns are unusual. In what way? Warren asked, though she seemed to already know the answer. Most sentient species show specific brain patterns when engaged in combat. Heightened activity in emotional centers, stress responses, neural inhibitors activating to prevent excessive violence. Katal's scientific curiosity overcame his nervousness. Your patterns showed none of these limitations. Even after eliminating multiple threats, your brain didn't trigger the standard neurological stops. Warren was silent for a moment. How much do you know about human evolution, Katal? Only what's in the standard xenobiology texts. Earth is classified as a Class 5 death world. Humans evolved as persistence hunters with exceptional endurance and problem-solving abilities. What the texts don't mention, Warren said quietly, is what that environment did to our neural architecture. Most sentient species evolved with built-in limitations, neurological fail-safes that prevent continuous violence. It's a survival adaptation that allowed for the development of cooperative societies. And humans don't have these limitations? Katal asked. We do, Warren replied. But they're different. Cultural, rather than neurological. We build them through training, through society, through choice. She looked out at the stars. Some call it a kill limit, the neurological cap on how many threats a being can eliminate before their brain forces them to stop. Humans don't have that cap. In the main cabin, the other students were recording this conversation, their scientific curiosity overwhelming their initial shock. Professor Alara, the senior faculty member who had been held hostage, moved closer to listen. Is that why the Galactic Federation approached Earth for alliance rather than attempting conquest? She asked. They recognized this trait? Warren smiled slightly. There was an incident during first contact. A misunderstanding with a species that believed humans would make good hunting trophies. They took a small Earth colony. Only one human survived, a farmer with no military training. What happened? Katal asked. By the time Federation peacekeepers arrived, the hunter ship had been disabled. The surviving human had eliminated all 27 hunters. When asked how, He simply said they kept coming one at a time, so he kept putting them down. The cabin fell silent as everyone processed this information. After that, Warren continued, the Federation decided alliance was preferable to potential conflict. Better to have humans as partners than opponents. The shuttle approached the Academy landing pad where a crowd had gathered. Medical teams rushed forward as they landed, quickly attending to the injured. Director Kalmat personally greeted the returning group, her tentacles shifting through colors of relief and amazement. Professor Warren, she said, the Academy owes you a great debt. When we received reports of your progress, many refused to believe one individual could accomplish such a rescue. Warren shrugged. I just did what was necessary, Director. Nevertheless, your actions have saved 17 lives. The director turned to address the gathered students and faculty. All classes will be suspended for 3 days to allow for recovery and debriefing. Professor Warren's rescue operation will be recorded in Academy archives. As the crowd dispersed, Professor Lon approached Warren. The xenobiology department head had been watching the shuttle arrival with keen interest. Professor Warren, he said, his wing membranes fluttering with excitement. Catal has already shared some preliminary observations about human combat responses. With your permission, we would like to conduct a more thorough study. Warren raised an eyebrow. You want to study me? Not just you, Lon clarified. Human neurological adaptations in general. This incident has revealed aspects of human biology that contradict our current understanding. It could revolutionize xenobiology. Before Warren could respond, Catal joined them, his scales bright with enthusiasm. Professor Warren, I've begun drafting a research proposal. If you would participate, we could publish the first comprehensive analysis of human combat psychology in the Galactic Scientific Journal. Warren looked between the eager academics, then smiled tiredly. Let me get some rest first. Then we can discuss your research. 3 days later, Warren found herself in the Academy's main auditorium. At Director Kalmat's request, she had agreed to give a special lecture on human adaptation. The room was filled beyond capacity, with students and faculty from every department in attendance. Warren stood before them in her regular teaching clothes, looking much as she had on her first day. Yet everyone viewed her differently now. The whisper stopped as she began to speak. Evolution shapes species according to their environment, she began. On Earth, humans face challenges different from most sentient beings in the galaxy. We lacked natural weapons, armor, enhanced senses, or physical strength. What we developed instead was adaptability, and something else. The capacity to continue, functioning in danger beyond normal limits. She displayed an image of early humans on the screen behind her. Persistence hunting, the practice of chasing prey until it collapses from exhaustion, shaped our physiology. But it also shaped our minds. When most predator species make a kill, neurological inhibitors activate to stop further aggression. This allowed for social cooperation necessary for civilization. Warren paused, looking across the rapt audience. Humans developed different inhibitors, cultural, ethical, and social rather than neurological. We can choose when to stop. That makes us different. Some would say dangerous. Professor Vexalia raised a hand. Is this why human military personnel are so valued in Federation peacekeeping forces? This lack of a kill limit? Partly, Warren acknowledged. But it's more complex than that. What makes humans effective isn't just our capacity for continuous action against threats, it's our ability to choose when not to use that capacity. Ethics over instinct. Choice over programming. Catal stood next to. Professor, our preliminary analysis of your neurological data during the rescue operation shows something fascinating. While you lacked the typical inhibitor responses, you showed heightened activity in regions associated with calculated decision-making. You weren't just fighting. You were constantly making ethical choices about how much force to use. Warren nodded. That's the real lesson here. What makes humans dangerous isn't our capacity for violence, it's our capacity for choice. The last Reaver I confronted, I let it go. Not because I couldn't eliminate it, but because I chose not to. The auditorium was silent as the implications sank in. A species without built-in limitations, whose members each made individual moral choices about the use of force, was both terrifying and fascinating. The Federation initially feared humans, Warren concluded. They saw our lack of neurological kill limits as a threat. What they eventually understood is that we limit ourselves. Through laws, ethics, training, and personal choice, we create boundaries that biology didn't give us. That self-imposed control is what ultimately made Alliance possible. As Warren ended her lecture, the audience erupted in questions. The implications of human neuropsychology would be debated in scientific circles for years to come. But for the students who had witnessed Warren in action, the lesson was already clear. Humans weren't feared because they lacked limitations. They were feared because they chose their own. 6 months after the Reaver incident, the Galactic Academy of Sciences hosted its annual research symposium. The event drew scholars from across the Federation, but this year held special significance. Catal and his research team were presenting their findings on human neuropsychology, with Professor Warren as their primary case study. The main hall was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from the Galactic Council sat in the front row, alongside military officials from various species. Word had spread quickly about the human professor who had single-handedly defeated 20 Void Reavers to rescue Academy hostages. Catal stood at the podium, his scales gleaming under the lights. The once shy student now spoke with confidence, his research having earned him early graduation and a position as a junior faculty member. Today we present our findings on what we call the Warren effect, he began. For the past 6 months, we have conducted extensive studies on human neurological responses compared to other Federation species. Our results challenge fundamental assumptions about sentient evolution. On the large screen behind him appeared brain scans of various species alongside human scans. The differences were highlighted in vivid color. All known sentient species in the Federation evolved with neurological inhibitors that prevent continuous aggressive action, Catal explained. These inhibitors activate after eliminating between 3 to 7 threats, forcing a reset period where further aggression is neurologically impossible. This evolutionary adaptation allowed for social cooperation necessary for civilization. He changed the display to show Professor Warren's brain scans taken during simulation exercises. Humans lack these inhibitors. There is no neurological cap on their capacity for continuous action against perceived threats. What they have instead are cultural and ethical frameworks that serve as conscious rather than unconscious limitations. Murmurs spread through the audience. Many had heard rumors of this human trait, but seeing the scientific evidence was different. We believe this adaptation emerged due to Earth's uniquely hostile environment, Catal continued. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a planet filled with predators. Their survival strategy wasn't to be the strongest or fastest, but to be the most relentless. Professor Lan joined Catal at the podium. The implications for xenobiology are profound. We've always assumed that neurological inhibitors were necessary for the development of civilization. Humans prove otherwise. They demonstrate that ethical frameworks can replace biological programming. In the audience, Professor Warren sat quietly, watching her colleagues present their research. Beside her was Director Kalmat, whose tentacles shifted through thoughtful colors. "Are you comfortable with these findings being published?" the director asked quietly. Warren nodded. The truth is better than misunderstanding. Fear based on ignorance is more dangerous than fear based on knowledge. At the podium, Catal was answering questions from the audience. A military representative from the Arcturian forces stood. If humans have no kill limit, why haven't they dominated their region of space? With such capacity, they could have established an empire rather than joining the Federation. Catal looked to Warren, who nodded and rose to join him at the podium. Because we understand the responsibility that comes with this capacity, she explained. Throughout our history, Humans who lacked ethical restraint caused immense suffering. We learned that our greatest strength isn't our ability to continue fighting, but our ability to choose peace. She gestured to the brain scans still displayed on the screen. What these images don't show is that alongside our lack of neurological inhibitors, we developed enhanced capacity for empathy. The same adaptability that allows us to keep fighting also allows us to understand others' perspectives. We can choose to override our initial responses. Another council member spoke up. Yet the Federation still uses human soldiers in its most dangerous peacekeeping missions. Isn't that exploiting this trait? We volunteer, Warren corrected. Humans choose military service knowing our capabilities. We prefer to put ourselves in danger rather than species with less capacity to endure it. That's not exploitation. It's responsibility. The discussion continued for hours, with questions ranging from scientific to philosophical to political. By the end, a new understanding was beginning to emerge. One that viewed humans not simply as dangerous anomalies, but as valuable allies precisely because of their unique adaptation. 2 years later, Catal stood at the entrance to the Academy's new Department of Human Studies. The facility had been established following the publication of his research, which had become the most referenced paper in the Galactic Scientific Journal's history. Inside, students from across the Federation studied human psychology, ethics, and history. The curriculum had been designed by Professor Warren herself before her return to Earth the previous year. Professor Catal, a young Malorian student, approached. "Is it true that you were there when Professor Warren rescued the hostages from the Void Reavers?" Catal smiled. "I was. It changed my understanding of life in this galaxy." "Were you afraid when you realized what humans were capable of?" "Initially, yes," Catal admitted. "But fear based on understanding is different from fear based on ignorance. That's the core principle of xenobiology, to understand rather than judge." He led the student into the department's main lecture hall, where a display showed the principles of human ethics that had evolved in place of neurological inhibitors. The words had been written by Warren herself. "Where biology did not limit us, we learned to limit ourselves. The true measure of strength is not how much force we can use, but how much we choose not to use." The student read the words carefully. "Is that why the Federation values humans so highly now? Because they choose restraint despite their capabilities?" "Precisely," Catal replied. "The Warren Principle, as we now call it, states that the most dangerous species are not those with the greatest capacity for violence, but those who have learned to master it." He pointed to a three-dimensional image of the galaxy, with Earth marked as a small point of light among countless stars. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them at every turn. They survived not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being the most adaptable and the most persistent. When most species would be forced by their biology to stop, humans can choose to continue or choose to stop. And that's why they're feared? Catal considered this. They're respected more than feared now. The lesson of Professor Warren wasn't just about human capacity for continuous action. It was about human capacity for choice. She could have eliminated all 20 Reavers, but she chose to let one live to tell the story. As more students filtered into the lecture hall, Catal prepared to begin his class on human decision frameworks as evolutionary adaptations. On the wall behind him hung a simple plaque with words that had become famous throughout the Federation, the conclusion of Warren's final lecture before leaving the Academy. Humans are not bound by biological programming to stop after a certain number of threats. We could keep going, but we choose when to stop. That choice, that moment of ethical decision, is what truly makes us human. Not our capacity for continuous action, but our capacity for restraint when we don't need to act. Remember this lesson well, for it applies to all sentient life. The most profound strength is not in what you can do, but in what you choose not to do. Catal looked out at his students, the next generation of scientists who would shape the Federation's understanding of different species. He thought back to that day on the lunar base, watching in awe and terror as Professor Warren systematically eliminated the Reaver threat. The fear he had felt then had transformed into something else, respect for a species that had replaced biological limitation with conscious choice. Today, he began, we study not just what makes humans dangerous but what makes them remarkable. Not the absence of a kill limit, but the presence of something greater. The ability to create their own limits and choose to honor them. And across the galaxy in countless academy classrooms, the story of Professor Alice Warren and the lesson of the kill limit became required learning for all students of xenobiology. A reminder that understanding other species began with moving, beyond fear to knowledge and beyond knowledge to wisdom.